Hello and welcome to The Voice of Iron, and on this session, we'll be reading Dreams of Rain, Tape 3. I closed the garage door, sighing as I wiped a bit of sweat from my brow. I'd had the bridge drive for nearly 4 days now, but modifying the connections and modifying Blue One's truck bed were pretty draining tasks, and yet it still felt good. My hands may have been covered in grease and lubricant, and my fingers may have been scraped and worn, but every second I'd spent working on retrofitting was a second well spent. I had just finished my goal for the night, modifying the connectors on the Solaris Starlight power system to interface directly with the drive. It had been hours upon hours, but that part, at least, was finally done, so I decided to reward myself with a bit of relaxation. After washing off my hands, I grabbed a relaxing synthwave cassette tape from the rack by the garage door and gently placed it into the music player, allowing the speakers to fill my apartment with calm, soothing synths. I walked inside, taking a look around. My apartment was fairly spacious, certainly larger than the typical modules found in the city proper. A main room with a large, decently sized kitchen inside, separated from the rest of the room by a bar. Towards the back could be found the doors to the bathroom and the bedroom. It was truly a blessing to have separate rooms like this. A typical city housing unit consisted of a single room with deployable tables, chairs, beds, and bathroom facilities. My pops had worked hard for a housing module this size in the outer colony and had always wanted to raise a family here. I sighed, the sound echoing through my empty apartment, as I opened the fridge, pulling out a Cosmic Cola. I laughed a bit as I read the familiar red label, Cosmic Cola, the best taste in the industry. More like the only taste in the industry, I muttered to myself, cracking it open with a familiar hiss. The drink was cool and refreshing, and holding the cold can against my forehead certainly helped to alleviate some of the stress from the work in the garage. The faint hum of the O2 vents rumbled through the metal walls of the room, a few lights on the walls blinking softly in the darkness. 2 red dots around the air controls, a few blue and green blinks from the fire suppressors and air filtration panels, and the static red off light on my VRH player. I pondered all of these various lights dotting my apartment before being drawn to the player and putting my drink down on a steel gray stool by the bar. I turned on the player after walking over, pressing the button with a faint click. The blue circle on the floor hummed and sprang to life as a 3D image of a VRH tape and the words Virtual Reality Hologram appeared hovering above it. I stared at it for a moment before rolling my eyes with a faint laugh. Right, I forgot to rewind it, I muttered aloud, pressing rewind with another tapping sound as the tape inside the machine whirred softly, almost inaudible, over the vents and gentle music playing in the apartment. Waiting for it to rewind, I turned down the music a bit more and walked back into the circle just in time for the image around me to fizzle out and the tape to click, having reached the beginning, before it started to play. Light formed around my feet, the hologram dancing to form grass as the image projected above me looked to be a darkened sky, rolling with clouds. A crack of thunder shook me where I stood as I saw raindrops form around me, before rain fell steadily, the sound sending a wave of relaxation through me. I've always had dreams of rain, but I've never actually seen or felt it. These rain tapes I rent and buy are the closest I've ever gotten to knowing real rain. And that's no surprise, really. I was born right here in Nova's colony, raised by my pops, and never set foot on a planet in my entire life. Come to think of it, neither had Pops, and I don't know about my mother. Pops never talked about her much, and I don't remember her myself. Last interaction I'd had with her had been 25 years ago, when I was born. I shook my head of such thoughts, looking up into the rain, finding my expression rather blank as the lightning flashed and wind blew harder in my ears. I held out my hand, watching as the holographic drops passed through it and fell through my hand to the grass below. I wanted just once to feel this for myself, to be able to go to a place where I didn't need this digital fake stuff to sate my interest. Yet a vacation away from the colony alone would cost a small fortune. The only ones who could afford such a thing are 60-plus-year-old retirees or asterisk executives, and even then, they might make 1 or 2 jumps for vacations to any world, not even mentioning how pricey it'd be to visit a water planet. I walked out of my holographic circle, hand on the VRH player, as I tapped the off button, hearing the rain fade away and the light dim. Then, I moved my head up and stared for a few minutes at the garage door. But I don't have to pay some vacation ship to take me anymore. Not with a bridge drive. I thought to myself. A dry smile appeared across my lips as I thought a little bit more about that prospect. No need to pay some overpriced jumping service when I can bridge out myself. This brightened my thoughts as I was reminded of the next step. Bridge coordinates. That was what I needed next. I'd have to stop by Jago's shop in the city for a bridge to a nearby star system. Jago's shop, I muttered aloud, walking over to the aged computer console, typing in the reminder to go see him when next I had a break. As I input that reminder, I saw another blinking notification on my screen. A reminder for this week. Send in 2 weeks' notice, it read. It had slipped my mind for a moment, the need to leave the scrapyard. I was hesitant, of course. I must have delayed this message every day since I got the drive. But I can't very well become a stellar vagabond and still work in the pyramid. I sighed, seeing the letters glow back at me, illuminating my face as I sat, frozen in thought. It was a big step. I had blown most of my savings on that drive, and the money Pops left me after the accident wouldn't last too much longer. I looked up at the ceiling, the vent still humming up there as I sighed and spoke aloud. I promise I'm not wasting it, I said, as if he was still around. The vent rattled up above, causing me to chuckle before sitting straight up once more. I couldn't have said it better myself, I muttered, looking over the draft for perhaps the 100th time, before letting out a deep breath and pressing send. There. Now the message was sent through the colony's network. I had to dedicate now, and I felt a rush of new motivation as I elected to return to the garage rather than head for bed. I would leave Nova's colony, and it would be on my own terms. That concludes today's reading, and thank you for listening to my voice.